Hi, I'm Christina. Welcome to this special episode of Inspiring Women, our panel episodes of our Women's Health, Wealth, and Happiness. Today we have Sarah, Joyce, and Marty. Hello, ladies. I can't wait to dig into this conversation. The smiles are already big. The inquiring minds want to know more about you.
Okay, well, my name's Sarah. I'm based in Brisbane. That's in Queensland, Australia. And those who don't know Australia, we're on the east side, so just keep going that way and you'll hit us. I am a sustainability consultant and I work with small and medium businesses to help them become more sustainable and introduce practices that they can achieve. I didn't set out to do that. I kind of fell into it, and I think age has a lot to play with how I ended up in this space and how I look at the planet and how I look at my life and how I look at things. So very grateful to get older. Not super grateful, but grateful on perspective on getting older. That's definitely something that I am embracing fully. And obviously, with that wisdom, it seems rude not to help other generations along the way. So, yeah, that's a little bit about me. I'm really excited to learn more about these amazing ladies and what makes them tick and, yeah, what learnings we can take away.
Well, Joyce Foistel, Boomer social media tutor. Um, I have been providing social media tutoring and training for close to 12 years. And my focus is primarily on LinkedIn. My target audience are women who own a business or are business development for somebody else's business. And especially if those women are between 60 and I'm going to start saying 80 since I'm 76 this month. And, that's closer to 80 than 75 was. And I help them really shine on LinkedIn with their profile and then figure out what the heck to do with LinkedIn because maybe they never used it much when they were in their workaday world before they got their own gig going full time or even part time. And it's very rewarding. I mean, I help people of all ages, but we all need a target audience. I also help job seekers of that age and younger to use LinkedIn to their advantage to help them land a job. One of my goals in 25 is to have more of an international presence. So no pressure, Sarah, right? But the more I can meet people from outside the United States, I live in the Denver area, the better off I am. And they are.
I am presently coming to you from Albuquerque, New Mexico, where I arrived about 3:30 yesterday after a 5-day, 33-hour, 2,200-mile trip from Vermont to Albuquerque. So my mom lives in Vermont, but she's flying in today to spend the winter here in New Mexico. My wife and mom-in-law live here in Albuquerque, and we safely brought my mom's cat the whole way. And so Bella is settled into the space, her condo, about 20 minutes away from here. So I was telling my wife I'm a little discombobulated, but I'm going to try to recombobulate here a little bit. So I call myself a legacy artist. I have been working in the field of personal history for over 30 years. Probably a decade ago, I started getting super passionate about helping build deeper connections, community, while talking about legacy. So I host events reminiscent of, I'm not really sure this happens in Australia, but reminiscence of show and tell from elementary school. So this is where I invite people to bring photos and things and tell stories about them. I've hosted about over 300 of them around the country and also virtually. I love talking about, legacy. Like, what does legacy mean? When you Google it, all you see is what's in the bank and what's your real estate holdings. And I feel very passionate, like Sarah does. Our legacy is so much more than those two things. And I feel like Joyce as well. Our legacy is so much more than that. I love holding space for people to talk about what legacy means to them.
Well, ladies, it is open for questions.
Joyce, I too am super passionate about bringing other women up. Like that's definitely something that is a core purpose and mission of my business. I work with consultants that are of similar age group that have often found themselves in this little bit of no man's land where we come out of corporate, we've got some big gaps with children and things like that. And all of a sudden you hit an age, well, it's the invisibility age, that special age where you're not young enough, but you're not old enough. And so you just meld into everything. I absolutely love what you're doing because, it's funny. I spoke to someone the other day and it was a male who entered the workforce in the 80s, who had the right face and the right look and everything. And he was like, well, why do you do LinkedIn? And I said, only someone who entered the workforce at that space would say that now, because you had the privilege of entering when everybody respected you and everyone, was wide open to you and excited by you. I said, but there's a lot of us that didn't have that privilege, and we need to enter into it, into our, using whatever we can to be heard. So I guess my question to you is, how easy are you finding people? How, what's the resistance level? And do you get that question as well from sort of possibly Palesdale males, like, about why would you bother?
So why would you bother with LinkedIn? Is that really the ultimate question?
Yeah. For women of, a certain age.
My perspective is a little skewed because I think most people of any age, starting in college or, post secondary and post high school, can benefit from LinkedIn simply as a way to be in touch with other people. I mean, it's okay when you're 20, let's say, to link in with your high school math teacher, because you never know who your high school math teacher knows when you're looking for that internship in financial planning. I mean, to use just a made up example out of the air, I find so many younger people, we'll start with that age group, love that there's really hardly any gatekeepers there on LinkedIn. You can connect with people. It's such an amazing community, and people reach back to you. They'll accept a connection. They don't freak out if you comment on their post. Like you had commented, Marty, on a post that I'd given her, also commented, like, I feel like I already know this woman. How cool is that? And we have this sort of shared view on things. And like, you meet these complete strangers, they feel like your sister or something. So I think when you come into LinkedIn and you don't think corporates, they've never really worked what I call corporate. So I'm just small town girl from Manawa, Wisconsin, population 1,000, actually a farm 5 miles from Manawa, Wisconsin. Grew up with a dad who could talk to anybody, anywhere about anything. And LinkedIn is kind of like that. You can talk to anybody, anywhere about anything. So I think if people think of it as this huge hub of folks out there that you never know how you can help them and they can help you. Then when you have your own business, these days, if you have to be, I think, on LinkedIn, or almost, maybe not if you're a massage therapist or something. If you have a small niche in a geocentric area. However, people say, oh, this is where I get the resistance, especially older people. Well, I just don't do social media. It's like I don't gamble. Like it's a vice. Like it's a terrible thing. I'm like, get over yourself. And realize LinkedIn is palpably different from any other kind of social media. So that's where I have, I don't get a lot of those usually because they're ready to talk to me by the time they get introduced to me. But that is the attitude that I do run into. And yeah, the privileged white guy that got into the business in the 80s, yeah, maybe they don't need LinkedIn. I don't know. They got their golfing buddies or Lord knows what they're doing now, probably retired. So I think it is, to me, a way also to inform. I mean, to let people know you have a body of knowledge, your stuff with legacy and the personal history, it fascinates me. I know I have to do a one-to-one with both of you, of course, but it intrigues me how you can have this niche area and you can just own that. People think, oh, I got to talk to Marty because it's about this idea to show and tell, and I'm going to tell my daughter and my granddaughter might be interested. I don't know, like all of a sudden you think so many things come to mind. So I feel that it's such a great way to establish personal authority, to be able to help other people learn. There's a very strong relationship between LinkedIn and Google. So when you have a strong presence on LinkedIn, that's really going to help your rankings go up. I mean, the one thing I'm still the nut to crack for me is how to get more business just directly from LinkedIn. Like, oh, I saw you on LinkedIn. I'd like to know more about, what you do for, maybe you could help me. So that's another 25 challenge for me. It was kind of a long answer, but was that helpful to you, Sarah?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, everything you said, I'm a massive LinkedIn junkie. I love it. I've grown my entire business through LinkedIn. I've connected globally. I mean, I would never have met Christina had it not been for LinkedIn. And I do get business from it because to me, it might not be that immediate thing of, yes, you can do this, but it's that proof concept of, okay, she is who she says she is. She does know who she says she knows, and she does know what she's talking about. So yeah, absolutely. To me, it's just that viability piece of, okay, that's who I am. And I always say to people, whatever I say out in public, it's reflected on LinkedIn. That's who I am.
Thank you. That's really cool. I love all that. How long have you had your business?
So I've had my business for a couple of years, but I've been building it whilst working in corporate land for a few years.
In the sustainability area too, then?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So at least the last 4 years, building the concept of it.
There's a couple terms you use that I'd love you to elaborate on. A legacy artist. I'd like to, you can tell us more about that. And personal history. Part of me, when I hear that, it seems like a little invasive. Like, ooh, why would I tell you my personal history? Isn't that my business? I don't know. I'm not, that certainly would be our parents' business. Like, oh my goodness, you should air your dirty laundry or something somewhere. But yeah, tell me about both. Just tell me how you got into it.
I love that, Joyce. So, so legacy artist. So I guess I'll start with the personal history part, and then that will lead into the legacy artist. So realistically, you know how they say the personal is political? There is no history without personal history. Every history book has people, usually people of privilege, who've been written about, right? Oh. People who work in the field of personal history often are working with people who do have a bit of privilege because it is a paid service. And so there needs to be some funding for it, but it's usually not just the elite these are, people who, want to share their stories, want to pass down their legacy, their stories, their struggles, their resilience, their failings, their successes for future generations, their children, their grandchildren, their future offspring, so that they know a bit more about them than just their names and dates and places. The stuff that you could get off of birth certificates, or when people talk about genealogy. So genealogy often just really just talks about those things, the when, where, what, and how, so to speak. Well, not a lot of the how. And so personal history, it's sort of like genealogy is the skeleton, and then personal history actually adds all the muscle and sinew and skin and all the stuff to it, the stories, basically. And so when I got into my work over 30 years ago, I didn't know anybody doing what I was doing. And so I happened across an organization called the Association of Personal Historians, APH for short. And they were mostly memoir writers and legacy filmmakers and oral historians who worked mostly in academic areas. I love them and connected with them because we're all about the healing power of sharing personal stories. But what happened is that they kept on asking me, what do you mean you don't interview people? What do you mean you? Because I only work with people's photo, document, and memorabilia archives, or the things that matter, the things that they surround themselves with basically their personal museum, their human museum. I work with all those things that people save, they keep, that matter, and that they'll leave behind. So I work with all of that, their archive, basically. And so they didn't get it, and my colleagues, for years. Unfortunately, this association has since folded, but they just didn't get what I did. And so I was just like, so what do I call myself? And so my goal is to, with the work with Memories Out of the Box, is to gather all these archives together, organize and curate them, and create a visual narrative. And so that's when I came up with the term of legacy artist.
So like an art museum curator in a sense. I'm trying to find a little parallels here in the museum of our lives, our personal lives. I once worked with a personal organizer who gave me an idea for when you have some special things, maybe a T-shirt that you've kind of more or less worn out, but you have there's a logo on it somewhere, so you just cut out this little part of the T-shirt and put it in a box, like a little memory box. And I can't think, I have to go and pull my memory box out now. We'll do that, you and me, on a separate Zoom. As a way to have a keepsake, might be a word, of a time and place. I have my mother's wedding dress.
Oh,
how did that happen? I'm not even sure. And it was a color she hated. I know that she told me this. This is like my show and tell, right? My wedding dress, which was I made it myself in 1972, and it was okay. I'm going to forget the fabric, all the different colors that you could have in the 70s. Anyway, so I made it. What was this?
Paisley? No.
Yeah, it was more or less that. Yeah, but it was my cousin didn't know you could get married in a dress that wasn't white. She didn't realize that was like allowed. She was like 12 or something at the time, and so that dress, which is I wore it all through the 70s to summer parties, and I don't look at them white. Why would I have white? So I had this dress. Then I handed it down to my kids, and they would dress up in it. Now my granddaughter has it as a dress up, and
my deep understanding, or you talked about a personal organizer, is that it's true. It's not that I believe things matter. It's the stories that get attached to them that do. You mentioned something about a privilege of growing older, that your transition into your business and your focus and basically your legacy is wrapped up in the privilege of getting older. My question was, one of the things that Judy and I have been doing over the last 5 days is staying at hotels along our route here, thinking about the non-sustainability of this experience. My biggest pet peeve is the little things of creamers, little plastic things of creamers. And it's just like, you have a thermos of milk. Why can't you have a thermos of half and half? Like, why do we have to have all of that? And then, of course, the other part is, I think they've gotten a little bit better with not change your sheet all the time. Like there have been things that have improved. Also, my wife is vegan, and to travel across the country and not have any one of these hotels have a non-dairy choice is another thing, right? And of course, veganism is significant in the sustainability movement. I love the work that you're doing, Sarah, and I would like to know a little bit more about how you are assisting, because it's like it's small and medium is where you're focusing, and how you're assisting, how you're there to support these small and medium companies become more sustainable, because climate change. So
what's really interesting in this space is there's a lot of people that come at it from a point of view of, oh my gosh, you're doing things that are really bad. I don't. I think we need to celebrate more and more the things that people are doing well and encourage people just to add on to that. There's a bit of them and us in sustainability, and there's sometimes that can be a bit scary for people, so then they tend to ignore it and go, oh gosh, I don't want to deal with them. They're greenies, they're vegans, they're hippies, they're this. Whereas to me, this is a human problem. this is a business problem. You know, it's just something that we all share. It's a shared problem. What's better than a shared problem? Because then we can have shared solutions. And I absolutely get what you're saying about the little creamers or the little shampoos or the little things. Sometimes, you know, it's easier to attach those things to a financial saving. And a lot of what I do is work with them on their strategic drivers, which quite often can be a financial saving. So then they go, okay, well, that actually makes sense. That's saving us a lot of money not to have those little things, because every time those little things go in the bin, their waste bill is bigger for a start, you know. So let's not pay for it in the beginning. Let's not pay for it at the end. Let's just think about it. It's one recycle box that you pour into a jug that costs, you know, half the price, and you're not paying for a whole load of little things to go in the bin. Sometimes it's just a bit of a realization for these businesses that they go, oh, actually, that makes sense. And it's not necessarily about saving the planet first. It's about, okay, well, that's a good business decision. And yeah, actually, that's much better for the planet, isn't it? So definitely for me, the narrative is around what's important to you, and then how can we kind of attach these human problems, planetary problems to that, and help your business be just part of the solution, but in a very sustainable way, in the sense that your business is sustainable, because we want it to last. We want you to be prosperous. Like, who doesn't want their business to be prosperous? It's a no-brainer. But we also, we don't want to be wading through a whole load of rubbish in the future. I mean, I certainly don't. So I guess for me, it really is about thinking about the simple things that people can do, rather than coming at it from that's really bad, don't do that. It's like, well, how about thinking about it like this? And here's some opportunities that you can look at. Maybe try it for a bit. Maybe ask your customers if that's something that they don't mind doing, because the truth is, for someone like you who it's really important to, it's like, man, if I didn't have to stay here, I probably wouldn't stay here, because you don't really match my values. Whereas by doing that simple thing, we encourage people like yourself who have those values. And you know what? The people that don't have the values, they don't care. They actually just don't care. So let's just work with everybody. And it really is about growing your business and doing the right thing. It's definitely challenging, because they do see it as, oh my gosh, how much is that going to cost me to be amazing at this? But when you break it down, it's actually not that hard. It's what our grandparents did. It's what we grew up with. It's like, come on, people. We used to have one set of pajamas that lasted us, and then our sisters got it, our brothers got it, and everyone got it. It's actually not that hard.
Not at all.
One purse I just use until it wears out. And then I get the same purse, so that this isn't exactly like it was the other ones. I'm still getting used to it. But I was just nosing around on your website, Sarah, and there's this whole concept, which, excuse my ignorance, because I'm just not real familiar with your field, of ESG, environmental, social, and governance. Would you just take a couple minutes and elaborate on that
Sure.
term, because it seems pretty prevalent in the world you're in?
Yeah. So ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance. It's a framework that people can work with within their business. So think of it as sort of triple bottom line reporting. So the way I talk to businesses is, when they're making decisions, any decisions about their business, the questions they're asking is it good for the planet? Is it good for our people? And is it good for our prosperity? If it's good for the planet, so say, for example, a very basic thing of, I'm going to set up an event. I've got a business. I'm just going to set up an event for all my customers. Okay, what can we do that's good for the planet? Well, the first thing I'm thinking is, well, maybe we'll get rid of all the plastic water bottles that we normally give out to everyone that comes to the event, because we like to keep them hydrated. and we just put the drugs on the table and we do it like that. Okay, we've done an environmental kind of checklist. We're not going to hand out paper things. We're going to encourage people to bring their laptops to write notes on. So we're just having that environmental lens. We're also going to encourage people to come by train. And if they come by train, then maybe they get something, like that. And then the social element is, well, who is it inclusive of? What time are we doing it? Does this help mums that have to get their kids to school, or does this help caregivers that need to be home at a certain time? Or have we looked at this from a disability point of view, and are we making it so it's, you don't have to go up 10,000 steps just to get to our event? And then the governance piece really is kind of that's the policies and procedures that overarch everything. And what that looks at is, okay, well, once we've got all this in place, let's sort of lock it in so that every event going forward has the same lens on it, that if I was to leave the business tomorrow, the next person that comes in goes, okay, we've got definite policies and procedures to support these things. And that's just one basic little thing that a business might do, but putting those lenses on it. But yeah, it's a great framework. Yeah, it's a really great framework for businesses to look at everything they're doing.
How long has that concept been around of the ESG, that particular framework?
Look, it's been around for a long time. It used to be under the guise of CSR, which is, your corporate social responsibility, which most corporates just throwing a load of money at volunteering or
like
charity work.
Something like that.
Yeah. So
this is more about how they operate day by day.
Yes. This is a much deeper lens on the operational side and production and all those things, whereas CSR was more of a standalone piece within the organization that was just the do good bit. Whereas now what we want to do, ESG is basically a strategic business driver, the same way as financials are. So they work hand in hand. That's how you do it. And if it's not interconnected, then you're doing something wrong. So going back to the creamer, that's a financial decision and that's a sustainability decision, all wrapped up in one. So that's a business decision. So that's why it's really important to have those lenses on it.
Well, and what I've found in it is that my understanding is that the coffee that these companies purchase is that the coffee companies are the ones that supply those creamers.
And in fact, your consumer behavior and your procurement behavior, so who's telling who, right? The coffee companies are providing it. So they're telling you how to behave. Who's paying for it? Oh, hold on a second. I'm paying for it. I'd quite like a little bit of a say in this, please. So I'm going to go back to them going, I actually don't need that. And the more people that go back to that coffee company and say, that's not how we operate anymore, and I can go to another coffee company who listens to you. And these are procurement strategies. And this is where we do a lot of work, is in that supply chain procurement. And a classic example of this is around exactly this. It's around packaging. When things come from Amazon and all those things, and you've ordered something this big and the box comes as this big and there's a whole lot of stuff in it. And even though they go, oh, but it's all recyclable, you go, yeah, that's great, but maybe don't have it in the first place and then I don't have to recycle it. We have to constantly push back on these things, saying, okay, I need you to think better because I don't like it. And we have that. Consumers have such a massive amount of power. Everything we buy, we have, or not buy, we have the power. And that's what I love. And that's what I want to encourage more of, is, this is people power. I don't want to buy from you anymore. I don't want to, I'm not going to do that anymore. And you think, I'm only one person, says a billion people.
Not going to buy. I like that, Sarah.
Yeah, just don't buy. Don't buy. I have a question, Marty. It's really interesting you bring this up because I've just recently been to the UK to visit my parents. That's my background. I'm British by descent. My dad's 88. These trips become more and more important. I love the fact that you're bringing your mum over, and that's awesome. And you get to this age where, if you've got kids, you kind of, for me, you just get them to the point where you can breathe, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh damn, parents, okay. And you go, your head swizzles and go, where's my bit in the middle? I asked my dad all these questions, and like, you forget they had this life. And I just think what you're doing is so important, because I just kept asking him questions about, when he was in the Congo and when he did all these things, and, and I can see, his eyes go up and pull these memories from things, and takes him into this other world. And it's so important and so beautiful that we, and I was like, commit to memory. And I didn't have my phone, and I was thinking, I really want to record this, but I was like, no, Sarah, commit to memory. This is really, really important. My dad he didn't have the best upbringing, and he always said to us, you're not the product of where you come from. You're the product of where you're going. And that's really, really important. And he always said to us, it's up to you to make what you want of things. You're not just the product of what it is. And history is important, but don't let it define you. Your journey is yours. But yeah, I just wanted to say, I just think what you're doing it really is fantastic. And I'm excited to have you in my network now and learn more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that if your memory is like mine, I would say you didn't necessarily have to record it from your mom, from your dad directly, like put him on recording, but definitely write it down. I'm glad that you took that time. And my mom's 88, so the same age as your dad. So I totally understand how it starts being.
I think there's some generational impacts, because I'm 75, turning 76, as I mentioned, and my parents, if they were alive today, be over 100. And I'm thinking about my father's generation in particular, or my father's family. My dad wouldn't have been a farmer if his own dad, who was a farmer, said, you should run the farm. And we're moving into town, by the way, and you and your wife and your little baby should move here to the family farm and run it. Now, did my dad really want to do that? I mean, this is my dad, born in 1921. Maybe not. I think one time I heard he took an aptitude test in high school, and farming didn't come to the top of the list or anything. But think about it, up to maybe post-World War babies, let's just think about it, we're expected to take on the family business, the boys especially, let's say, whether it's no matter, retail, or whatever it is, this is what you're going to do because this is what our family does. And I just want to throw that out because I feel that being born in 1948, that I had more options, but even not necessarily. Like my best friend Sharon from high school was told, we aren't going to pay for college, said her mom and dad, because, you'll just get married, have kids. And so she put herself through college in the 60s, because you could do it back then, and was a high school business teacher her whole life. It's just interesting to think of how we can limit ourselves because maybe we don't want to go against, whatever the family is saying. I did feel I had options. And I feel like my dad really identified more with my mother's side of the family, a bunch of educators and other college. My mother and her family, her siblings, 4 girls, 1 boy, born between 17 and 27, all got college degrees. 3 got master's degrees. That's 2 of the girls now, too. So think about it. Isn't that incredible? That was so valued. Their dad was a high school teacher and principal. Their mother was a teacher early in her life. So I just find how education also can play a big part in it, to see options. So it was really great that our 4 kids that I grew up in, born between 48 and 55, we had a lot more choices than certainly my dad's mom's generation.
And these stories are all so important to share. That's one of the reasons my mother is a guest each season, because I love finding out these stories. I love sharing these stories. My father passed away in 2003. So it's like, oh, the things that I wish he could know, like my son who's 10. So we tell him stories as if the same way that my mother raised me with my family on the other side of the earth, of going, they're just down the street. That's the way she spoke about them. And it's the same thing we do with my dad. He's like in the other room. He knows what you're doing. And it's so important to find some ways to share them, because when you want to know, like the questions I would want to ask my grandmother, by the time we realized, oh, I want to know this, she's not there anymore. And it's beautiful, to find out who were they. And just like you said, Marty, it's not just the skeleton, but what's the meat? What's the meat? Who are we? What did we do while we were here?
I love it. I've listened to your interview with your mom, and I don't know how everybody else here on the panel thinks, but as I've gotten older, I'm going to be 66 in February. It's become much more clear how impacted, how I am here and why I'm who I am, based on my mom and who she is. And then she was from her family, right? It's just like, wow. We all think, oh, we're independent, we're our free spirits and everything. And, and then as I age, I'm like, oh yeah, this is why I feel this way. And I think this way, and I see the world in a certain way and stuff. It's like our parents really helped shape us.
Yeah, it's a good word. I like that concept. My dad would talk to anybody, anywhere, at any time. Big BS, or I'll just say it, in a good way, So, in my world that I'm in with LinkedIn, to fast forward it, I have 1 hour to really help somebody. I may never have met them before. They referred to me. Okay, I asked like really sort of personal questions. Okay, tell me more. What's this about? Your headline. Oh my gosh, it's just boring. We've got to do something here, because what you told me is so far more interesting than what you have showing up here on LinkedIn. But I have to be really cheeky, to get that direct with these people. So thank you, Dad.
You inherited that from your dad.
Yeah, my dad and my mom, queen of being organized, details, memory, like you would never believe, her whole side of the family. So between the tools that I have and just this innate memory, freaks people out somehow. But it really helps me then, because then I can move along quicker, because then I remember stuff. So yeah, it is. It's fascinating, the whole nature nurture thing. It's pretty like your dad at a point is, we're not where we came from. We are where the direction we're going. And I think that's really cool too, Sarah. To not limit ourselves because of our upbringing or whatever it might be. Say, I could do what I want. I can make a difference in the world. Yeah.
And it's interesting, because I had a conversation with my nieces and nephews the other day, who are all kind of in their 20s and 30s. Their view on the world is being driven a lot by algorithms and things, and they're all very passionate, and everything is in the right place, they're all pointed in the right place. But I said to them, do you ever follow people that you disagree with? No. Why would I follow someone I disagree with? So because how do you know what other people are saying? How do you know that what you know is really, really true if you don't also allow other opinions into your algorithms? I said it's the problem that we have these days, and I love, we all surround ourselves in a little bubble with like-minded people, and I think that's a natural human instinct. It's a community sense. But I do think with technology, it's really easy for that to become smaller and smaller and smaller. And it is really, really important to understand what other people are saying, because they believe it just as much as you believe what you believe.
Exactly.
And you have to be challenged. I worry a little bit, well, not worry, but that these generations coming up are really not very good at being challenged. And from the moment I could have an argument, if I said something was white, my dad said it was black. Not because he believed it was black, but because he just wanted to bait me into proving it was white. And that's where I get me from, because he was like, nah, it's not true. And it's really, really important to be pushed on stuff, because it shows your strength of commitment and your values and all these things. And I do get a little bit concerned that this is getting very small. And I hear it and I think, you know what? Just find someone who has the opposite opinion. Like, really, really listen to things. I don't know how you ladies feel about
My
that.
husband is much better at that than I am. I mean, he was a writer of laws, and then he was a legislative consultant. Those were his two careers, and he dealt constantly with, he interacted with people from a very wide range of political and policy viewpoints. And he has his own leanings, right? He couldn't let those be exposed in his, till he retired. But I admire him for that. My other, of course, this is my solution to a lot of things, is Toastmasters. If you think about Toastmasters, international organization, you can end up in Toastmasters oftentimes with people of very different points of view, political points of view, other kinds of points of view. And you don't usually like push your religion, your politics, whatever, in through Toastmasters, but it can seep out around the edges. So therefore you can meet some people you might never have met possibly before. So, especially now with, hybrid meetings and online meetings, you can be in clubs. There's a couple ladies from Australia in a club based here in Denver. But I just throw that out as another, the whole third space concept. You have your home and you work in, oftentimes that was church or your bowling league or whatever. Now it's a lot of different things, certainly. And I think Toastmasters is a place like that, where you can belong and not be judgmental, and you want to lift everybody up. But I think your point is so well taken about any of us get into our own little news bubbles. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I also I've let that focus me to being a minority, a lesbian, has made me like a little bit more insular, and especially in the climate right now. But I don't think that it ultimately, protects us or makes us more resilient or capable as a human species, because I still believe that the majority of us, of humans, have much more in common than they have difference. And that is a goal of the work that I do with Show and Tales, my events and the workshops and the facilitating that I do, is to, when you encourage people to bring a photo or an object, I've now got 26 different themes: cards, letters, and thank you notes, love letters, lockets, and valentines, scars, tats, and piercings. I mean, everything has a story. T-shirts, what Joyce was talking about, the T-shirt things, they all have stories. And it's like, when all you're doing is bringing an object and sharing a story, it allows for, that humanness to show up and be the thing that people focus on, as opposed to the differences.
And that's beautiful, because it makes me think back to the purpose of the show and tales, kindergarten to adults, that we're just there to say, hey, look at me, let's be friends. Why can't we just be friends?
And yeah, one of the things, Joyce, I say, I have a lot of friends in Toastmasters, and they love it. And I've gotten involved a little bit here and there. I'm not an official member, but I joke about how Show and Tell was the original Toastmaster for toddlers, because that actually is what it was brought into the curriculum in elementary school here in the United States, basically as a way to encourage kids to get over the fear of public speaking, showing, what matters to them, whether they bring in their gerbil or or their painting or their drawing or their baby sister, who knows what they brought in to show and tell.
That's so cool. I know you want to take like 1 minute to say Toastmasters really helps you build your confidence. That's the purpose of it. Like you were saying with the children, it helps you do prepared speaking for people seeing this that don't know about it. It also helps you with impromptu speaking. And probably most important, it helps you to give feedback out loud to somebody else in front of a group, which is a very scary thing to do. And don't we all give feedback to people all day long? And it helps you to frame that and be direct, but come across with love. So that's not exactly how they say it on the website, but that's really ultimately, I think Toastmasters has helped me with, is giving feedback. And so I just thought I'd throw that in for people that it's not exactly a household word in many circles.
What I'd like to do is go ahead and sum up everybody's thoughts. So we'll start with Marty, Joyce, and then end with Sarah.
I thank you very much for dealing with me as discombobulated as I am. I am so looking forward to listening to Sarah and Joyce's interview after learning more about your guests who are wonderful. So.
I'd say I learned about sustainability. I know the concept, but the way you've broken it down, Sarah, and the way it's been changing over the years, it meaning, the whole idea of being sensitive and aware of the impact of our businesses, our personal selves, but I think it's wonderful, the work you're in. And yeah, it's intriguing. And then the personal history, I kind of know about a lot of these things, but I hadn't thought of it. I think genealogy sort of has such a kind of a spin. And have you done your, DNA or blah, blah, blah. This to me is so much more interesting. Like you said, the muscles and the sinew. So it really intrigued me. Maybe think of my Aunt Roseanne, who was one of the best persons I've ever known for remembering. And I miss her almost more than my own mother, because she was this link for me to that generation. And she died 3 years ago now. So, yeah.
It reaffirmed how fantastic it is to be a female. To meet two people that you've never met before through a medium of technology and feel like you have a personal connection straight away and be fascinated and curious and learn stuff. And, I'm sure all of us could just sit here for hours and just chat and learn about each other. And I celebrate that being a woman, because we're really bloody good at it. We're so good at it. And, it's such a great thing. And I am unapologetically, that's part of who I am. And I always say to people, I am a woman, and this is what we do. We connect, we're community, and we help each other, and we bring each other up. And I just love it. And so this morning for me, just reaffirmed how fantastic it is that there are all these other amazing women in the world. And yeah, so thank you to each of you. And I look forward to my 60s and my 70s. That's, I think we got every generation. We got like 50s, 60s, 70s. And it just gets me super excited to just embrace all that's coming. So yeah, thank you, ladies.
And thank you, Christina, for bringing us together and, for just, celebrating women's voices like you do.
Yeah. Amen.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, ladies. I am thrilled because all of you have been just organic connections that I've met online. And, Sarah, I remember she's like, I'm going to say yes because I want to uplift another woman. And Joyce, when I showed up on her meetup, she's like, oh, this is Christina. Like, oh, my LinkedIn precedes me. And then Marty, who's just like, come on, let's go for the ride. I wanted you to meet all these other people. And you three are just amazing and have touched my lives. And I'm so excited to bring you to this moment and all three of you together. Thank you for this. Thank you for this moment. And the other thing I love is the organicness. I'm like, Sarah's like, I can't do any of the dates. I can do this one. I said, whoever shows up is meant to show up, and it's going to be beautiful. And look at this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Subscribe and click the link below to find out about bonus tracks and how to join our community. You ladies are amazing. This interview has been incredible. These are the inspirational ladies. Thank you for watching.